Welcome to McChats here on McGTV. That's youtube.com/MikeMcGTV. Follow me on Twitter at MikeMcGTV. And I'm very excited to bring another guest here into the McChats. We'll get back to horror movie discussions with the three geeks and maybe some Twin Peaks stuff later, but I'm glad to be able to take a break a little bit, bring in some new voices, new perspectives. And this is a new perspective from Kate from That Movie Chick. Welcome.
Hey, great to be here.
I've actually been following you for a couple months now on YouTube, and I know you said you're relatively new to the platform, but ever since I believe the Valerian movie review, have I been kind of a fan. I really enjoy your insight and things like that. What kind of got you interested in doing, say, movie reviews on YouTube?
Oh, well, I'm so glad you actually said Valerian. I feel like I was one of the few people who even liked that movie. I had like a lot of people be like, oh man, that movie sucked. What were you thinking? I'm like, oh, but what made me want to do movie reviews? I've been wanting to do them for a long time, but I just never had I guess the courage to do it. Especially when I was younger, I was afraid of having trolls and people like leaving hate comments and that stuff. But being older now, I mean, I'm not ancient, I'm only 28, but I just care less about what people think. And I'm so passionate about movies and what I feel when I watch them that I just kind of want to share the experience and discuss it with other people who love movies.
That's very much echoing similar sentiment. When I first started, not even on YouTube, when I was on Blip for a while, I just want to get my thoughts out there on either the latest movies or even just some of my favorites. What would you consider to be, let's say, maybe one of your top favorite films, just to give us a sense of what really draws you into a movie going experience?
I am a huge horror buff. My favorite film I will always go back to, and I think is pretty much near perfect, is John Carpenter's The Thing. I will always watch that movie. I'll make everyone watch that movie. I think it's the best.
It is like near perfection for me with regards to suspense and sheer shock imagery as well, being utilized well and not just jump scare. It's anxiety inducing.
I love slow burn movies where it builds up the tension and then you get the really good payoff. But also horror movies that have a sense of humor. Like you're not just watching something that's just uber depressing. You get a lot of humor out of that. I mean, just from Kurt Russell, his acting and his character alone, you get a few laughs, but I feel like there's a good balance, which you don't really see with a lot of horror movies, I feel like, with today.
Well, yeah, today this is a completely different subject from what we'll be discussing, but they're really adamant about giving you up front right away as fast as possible your scary payoff without earning it, I feel, at times. There's some movies that really do it well, but there's others that, let's say, Rings and things like that.
Oh, God, Rings, yeah. Well, I mean, that's what happens when you have something written and produced by Akiva Goldsman. He's pretty much done every horrible blockbuster movie you can think of.
He's got such a weird pedigree, because he's done some things I actually kind of admired a little bit, like the writing, I'll say, on A Beautiful Mind, while it can get saccharine at times, is pretty solid. But then, yeah, I Am Legend or Lost in
Batman
Space.
Batman and
Robin. So,
yeah.
It's all over the place. But
even the latest one, I don't think he wrote it. I think he just produced it. But The Dark Tower, which wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen him do, but it was really boring.
I want to actually address something that you do with regards to your presentation of a review, is that you'll start off with the title, but then you'll say AKA and then give a little bit of a blurb that kind of summarizes, but not all the way, your impressions on the movie. Like, what gives you that idea of, let's change it up a little bit? Because I just go for the straight, here's my, if I reviewed it yet, here's my It review, or here's, instead of...
I drew a lot of inspiration from Game Grumps, Markiplier. I always love their titles for their videos because it's, especially if they're doing playthroughs, they always give each of them like it's like an actual episode of some TV show, like some weird little silly blurb. So I felt like it would be eye grabbing and sometimes showcase a little humor, or if maybe the person doesn't really have any interest in that movie, but what if I'm discussing a topic that they have interest in? Like Ingrid Goes West, a lot of people didn't really know about that movie, but I do make that one little mention in the blurb that it addresses how we have an obsession with social media. So I try to use it as like a draw to like kind of give you a sense of what you're going to expect in that review, and at times show a little humor.
After viewing the video too, I'm like, you know what? Pinpoint accurate on the summarization. It's like brought it home. Like especially with this most recent review, which will segue pretty well, I feel, into our discussion, our main meat of the conversation today. But before that, are there any movies or reviews or projects that you're really looking forward to kind of posting soon?
I'm not sure it's going to be, I'm hoping it's going to be posted this week, but I have, real life been a little chaotic.
Right.
But I am going to be tackling Netflix original movies pretty soon. I'm starting with a really bad one, so I'm excited to do that.
We'll talk later about which one it is. I'll let you know.
Yeah. No, the latest one I'm tackling, because I a lot of times, just because I am paying for my own movie tickets, a lot of times I don't get to watch two movies that come out at the same time. So I pretty much do a hand toss of like, all right, which one would I rather watch? And a lot of times if it's an adult movie and a kids movie, I'm not going to generally pick the kids movie.
Right.
But this time around, it was between a bad horror remake of a bad 90s horror movie or a Tom Cruise movie. And I don't really like Tom Cruise that much. So I went with the bad horror movie, because at least I'll know I'll have fun with a bad horror movie.
Right. There will be something of merit as opposed to watching someone who...
So I will be watching Flatliners.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Is it weird? I haven't seen the It remake yet. I know it's really bad as a movie reviewer, quote unquote, site, that I haven't seen that yet, because that's what everyone's been talking about. But part of me is like, you know what? You can work up the gumption to go see Flatliners just because I love the original.
Yeah.
And I'm
so
that
disappointed.
Original
is so very 90s and silly.
Yeah.
So I feel like this movie is going to try to take itself a little too seriously, but end up being more ridiculous as a result.
The comedy is in how serious everyone will be taking it when we're like, we've seen this done in such a campy way before. But yeah. It's so bad that that's the movie I'm like, you know what? I think I'll drag myself out to go watch it. But I gotta say, I love watching not just your reviews, but other movie reviewers as well right now, because I personally have, again, like you were saying, real life has set in. I haven't had time to go watch many movies in the theaters. I'd very much do something to what you were saying, where I'd have one day, like an early morning matinee, to watch the horror movie, and then the Sunday matinee I'd watch the action film or the kids film. But part of it also is our main topic today, which is I just can't stand going to the theater anymore.
Oh yeah, no, me neither.
And you touch upon this in your Kingsman Golden Circle review right before the actual review. You kind of have this moment. I recommend everyone check it out. I'll link it down below. You have a venting session. Now, care to kind of reiterate a little bit without giving too much away?
Oh God. It's not even actually my first review where I actually use the beginning of my review to complain. The first one I did that with was War for the Planet of the Apes. But yeah, this one was really bad because I had to go by myself. I usually try to go with a friend or my boyfriend, just so like I can get that other perspective. This time I had to go by myself, and I thought I was safe. I'm seeing an action movie in the early morning, not at the AMC, which is the theater I've had the most trouble with. So I'm sitting there. I don't really understand. Like they didn't actually weren't that noisy at first, the crowd. It wasn't until the movie started, it was suddenly like this woman decided she had a phone call she had to really take. And like there's a car chase happening on the screen, and she's talking loudly into the phone so the other person can hear her over the audio of the movie. It was really stressful. I was just like, I actually take notes while I'm watching these movies. I bring like a notebook, and I kind of like write in the dark, which I would not suggest doing, but I need to take notes.
I tried that once before, and I'm just like, my eyes are watering. I can't do this.
You know what's funny? The way I write it, because I'm very avid on writing, so that I don't look at what I'm writing. I just kind of remember what the words look like and just start. It's like chicken scratch. You'll see like it's all slanted and there's big gaps between like sentences, but I'll write down like basic notes. But yeah, it was incredibly hard to do that because there was someone making what I can only describe as monkey noises 5 rows behind me. There was the woman talking on her phone, and she was with, I don't know if it was her son or her brother, but he definitely was mentally handicapped, and he was not enjoying the movie. And I felt really bad for him because it kind of seemed like she wanted to be there for the movie and just made him sit there. Yeah. Because he had to leave every 5 minutes. He seemed very distressed, which was making me distressed. And I'm just like, what? I kind of contemplated, I should have gotten a refund, but I really wanted to finish the movie because I was under time constraints.
Right.
It was just like a madhouse. There were so many different little subplots going on in my own audience, more so than was in the movie. It was kind of like War for the Planet of the Apes showing when I went to that one. We went opening night. I thought if I watched it the night before, I would actually film. I could get it out faster, and I never did it again because it was obviously packed. There were a bunch of teenagers in the back screaming and yelling at each other. And then my boyfriend and I, we had an old couple right behind us with their phone on speaker, and they were talking to someone really, really loudly. Finally, they stopped that, and then they would talk to each other and then would speak louder every time the movie got too loud that they couldn't hear each other. Yeah. We tried to call the manager, and the manager, basically, they say they have a policy of they have to see it happen. They can't just, like, give someone a warning. They have to see it happen for themselves. Well, you can see them standing there, so they would then stop talking and wait for the manager to leave so they could proceed talking.
That kind of infuriates me because, I've heard of that before where it's like if someone's actually on the premises, observing, you'll see people purposefully start to behave and then immediately go. It's like, it's not that they're just willfully, like they know what they're doing and they're being very strategic about when they do it.
Yeah.
It's that is very aggravating. What you were saying about the individual who is handicapped, who is in distress, that adds just another level. I've had that happen where I happen to be in the row right in front of the handicapped seating, and you'll hear someone who is getting agitated or worked up. I don't mind it so much if, say, it's a comedy and they're laughing, and things like that. That's perfectly fine. I'm glad they're enjoying it. But you'll have, say, a very stimulating thing occurring on the screen that can produce that effect in somebody, and they just continue to wail and wail, and I'll be like, is this person here on their own, or is someone supposed to be looking out for them a little bit? It's like this person doesn't sound like they're enjoying themselves, and that stresses me out further. And I'm like, I'm so focused on that Arnold's killed about 50 people, and I've missed it. So.
It really angers me in the end because I have family members who are on the spectrum. I have a family member who has Asperger's. I had another family member who had Down syndrome. So I know what you're supposed to do and to take care and see the signs. And it was just watching someone get so upset because Kingsman, it's a rated R movie. There's a lot of explosions, blood, and a lot of fighting and cursing. And I could tell that this guy was not having any of it. He was very, very upset. And it was just kind of, I don't know, listening to someone else sound so upset for a good solid 45 minutes during the movie, it's upsetting. And then it pulls you out of the movie. And then I feel like that may have also made me, I guess, not like the movie. It didn't help me in not liking this movie. Not that the sequel was any good, but
right.
Because like you said, it doesn't always bother me. In fact, when I went to see Wish Upon, which That's a really great bad movie. That I enjoyed a lot. I actually went to see that with my mom because she also loves really bad horror movies.
Yeah, I've heard it's kind of just like it goes for broke with its
Mm-hmm.
craziness and
Yeah. I was near the handicapped seats and a group had come in and there was this one guy who was so cute. He was so excited for this movie and he was enjoying it all the way through, just like I was. And he laughed at one of those really dumb moments. And I guess there were some preteens that were sitting behind us that just thought his laugh was so funny that they started to scream and mock him for a good solid 5 minutes before someone
teenagers.
finally like stood up and told them to like settle down and be quiet. Like I thought a fight was going to break out.
Yeah. Well, teenagers, yeah, they're a category in and of themselves.
Yeah, well, it's funny because there's never anyone in the middle. It's either someone who's older or someone who's like really young,
Right.
especially during the summer. And I mean, normally, there was a funny instance I had when I went to see Mother. I guess this older couple didn't know what Mother was. I guess they assumed it was just like
Yes.
some like, oh, it's called Mother. It's probably, about someone's grandma or something. And walked in and boy, yeah, that like the first conversation they're having, they couldn't decide if they had left their oven on. And this was during the previews. I just thought that was humorous. And they were quiet during the movie, but I could tell it started to sink in that Mother was probably not the movie for them. And like they just sounded horrified and like they were kind of talking to each other, like, should we leave? And it was so funny.
That happened in my screening of a couple years ago. Don John I had an elderly couple sitting behind me because I don't know what they were expecting from. They probably hadn't seen any of the previews. They just saw, oh, this will be like Don Juan maybe or something. Mm-hmm. And then the first 5 minutes of that movie are about Joseph Gordon-Levitt going to the clubs, getting laid, watching porn, and using actual porn clips in the movie. And there's a big strobe light effect and everything going on. 5 minutes into this movie, the old lady behind me, I mean, God bless her, but she's like, this is ridiculous. And I hear her just shuffle, get up and leave, and the old man behind her, me is like, oh, okay, fine, we're leaving. He was into it apparently, but I was just... There are those moments where you can take a step back and be like, all right, that's fine. But what you were saying to the effect of people being disruptive or just things that go unaddressed. Like, I went to go see Expendables 2, and the couple brought in a little baby. And if you've seen Expendables 2, the first 5 minutes of that is nothing but explosions and machine gun fire. That kid was sound asleep up until then. And I'm there watching them, like, they're further in front of me. I'm just watching them pick up the baby, try to cradle it while in the theater. I'm like, what'd you expect? It's like...
Yeah. No, the only time I ever saw anyone leave the theater, and this is before I was doing movie reviews, is when I went to see The Witch, which I understand because when I first saw the trailers for The Witch, it depicts it as a completely different kind of movie.
Right.
Because any trailer that you saw was like, oh, this is, thrills, and there's going to be so many jump scares. It's going to be this big, scary horror movie. And what you do get is a slow burn movie that has some scares, but it's mostly psychological.
The Witch is revealed, like, right away, too. So.
Yeah, it took about 10 minutes for this one rowdy group who thought they were going to see, like, one of those dumb horror movies. They tried to, like, make fun of it at first, but they were so bored and disappointed that they just all up and left.
Yeah.
Within the first 10 minutes.
Which, I mean, that's fine. It's their dime. It's their buck. And in a way, it does kind of thin out the serious crowd that's there for it. I hate to think of, like, serious crowds for movies, but you go into certain films either kind of doing your research ahead of time for the sake of knowing, like, well, can I bring my kids to it, or, things like that. I never got the mentality of I'm just going to show up to the theater and see what happens, like, randomly.
Honestly, especially with how expensive movie tickets are, I don't just walk into a movie theater and be like, well, I guess I'm seeing this movie now. Like, I'd want it to be worth my money.
Yeah, it's like an investment at this point, and you're...
Basically.
You want to get the most out of it, so...
And, and sometimes I choose the wrong movie. I can't remember what movie I saw instead, but I decided not to see Book of Henry, and then I heard how amazingly awful it was. I'm like, shit, why did I see that movie? Because
There,
I love bad awful movies. Those are always the best experiences to see in the theater.
yeah, I'll agree. It depends on if the rest of the crowd is along with it too, because I didn't see that in theater. I saw it on. Don't say this. I saw this on a streaming site somewhere that wasn't
I got
Netflix.
you.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing too. Is like I'm just trying to be able to financially stay afloat as it is. I can't afford to be doing like a couple of tickets every week for movies. I'm just gonna be like, ugh, okay. But I would have imagined either that movie or I guess something along the lines of Mother. I would be curious to go to a Mother screening. That would be just to see
Yeah,
the.
that one I kind of regretted not seeing as a screening because I kind of want to see how people would react to that movie.
Mhm.
The best movie experiences I ever had are usually at the Alamo Drafthouse Cinema.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, I
the
want to
one I
go. I
go to
haven't
is
been.
in Yonkers, New York, which is
Yeah,
about 35 minutes away from me.
nice.
I've heard a lot of people bash it before and call them hipsters that, oh, they're crazy strict about you being quiet. And every time I've been to one of them, and I've seen old movies there. For my birthday, I went to see Predator.
Mm.
For my mom's birthday, we went to see The Thing. I've been to a quote along for Princess Bride, and they encourage people's enthusiasm for movies. Like they want you to react to the movies. They just don't want you to be that asshole who's suddenly on their phone or has like a laser pointer and you're shining it on the screen, or having
Yeah,
a loud conversation with your friend. Like when the last movie I went to the Alamo was It. I went to see It, and that was such a great experience because everyone's jumping in their seats and
hmm,
you hear everyone like screaming, and it was really fun. Like people enjoying the movie.
yeah. There's a very clear cut line between the actual enjoyment sounds that are permissible, and then everything that takes you out of that experience. And I'll agree. Like I want to say one of my best movie theater going experiences was for in recent memory Mad Max Fury Road in the
Mm.
full 3D and everything, because it was opening weekend, so it was a pretty open space theater because everyone was seeing Pitch Perfect too. Like that movie demolished Mad Max that opening weekend.
I've only ever seen the first one, and I was like, well, this is not for me.
Yeah, I saw the first one. Even though I'm a music person, I'm like, it's okay, but
No,
it's not
it
my
was.
thing.
You know what? All right. I don't like musicals, but it's not that I don't like music. It's just I don't like things that are like Glee. I
Hmm.
don't like jukebox type style musicals,
Right.
like where it's just like, hey, you remember that song that was like a hit for a month on the radio? I'm gonna sing it a cappella in the shower, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, kind of their title put me off of it. Pitch Perfect. Well, I don't want to watch perfect performances. But so Mad Max was playing simultaneously with that.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew going in that, okay, I'll have a little bit of wiggle room with regards to it's not going to be wall to wall people for this. I'm not going to feel boxed in because I usually, because of the hours and the days that I go see movies for, the cheapest buck, I don't tend to go with a person. Every once in a while I will. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, I went with a buddy and it was like a
Mm.
nice evening show. But the opening weekend of Mad Max, it was nice. Had a couple of seats, in between me and the other people, and we were all just focused on every little detail in that film. That it was like we're all on this huge roller coaster right now, and that
Hmm.
was very enjoyable. Like we were laughing, hollering, screaming, but it was because we were caught up in the emotion and the action, as opposed to like, I wonder what's on my Twitter feed right now, which I don't
Hmm.
understand. When you go to, especially big blockbuster, huge, eye candy extravaganzas, how can you be so easily dissuaded from that with your phone? I mean,
Oh, I know. Especially when you're paying so much, like a lot, especially when you want to see something in 3D or you want to
yeah,
get the special seats, you're paying like up to $15. I'm not spending that time on my phone.
yeah, it's like I will devote my time to a crappy movie if I'm like, you know what, I've put a lot of bling or a lot of cha-ching behind this viewing of this crappy movie. But
Hmm.
there was one instance where, oh God, I'm trying now just remember all these instances of movies. It was Winter Soldier. Uh,
Okay.
Again, this always happens to be people right behind me too. I just happen to pick up on all these conversations. This girl and her boyfriend, I guess, she must have been on her phone throughout that entire movie, because every 5 minutes I'd hear a bit of a rustling, like she's putting something away or putting something in a jacket pocket or a purse or something. And then she would say, she was trying to whisper, but the seats at some theaters are just so close you can't help but overhear conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And she was basically whispering to him like, okay, what happened now? And he would go through literally the last 10 minutes of what happened. And I'm like, I'm at the point where Black Widow's trying to kill Bucky. I'm like,
yeah.
And I'm hearing that Robert Redford's a bad guy. So stop. Like, I'm getting two different feeds, but you can't help it sometimes. But again, I have a sneaking suspicion. It was just because every couple of minutes she'd have to check something on her phone and completely tune out something that I thought would be impossible to tune out.
It seemed like she may have not been interested in the movie. That happens a lot. I always find that duo or a group, and there's like that one person who felt like they had to be dragged along and not want to see the movie. So they just kind of like ruin it for everyone else in a way.
50 Shades of Grey, yeah.
Oh, God. I streamed that movie because I was not paying money for that.
I streamed this last one because I'm like,
wasn't it way worse than the first one?
Oh yeah, but
it was so boring.
I take some enjoyment out of the little insane moments in it, and I'll give what's her name, the lead, Dakota Johnson, benefit of the doubt. Like, she has this complete like, I don't give a shit attitude about this.
She's such a good actress too. She's really slumming it. Like,
he's a good actor too. Like, it must kill them that they're attached to this.
You know what? They're getting a paycheck out of it, and no one even knew who she was before these movies, and now she's gotten a career out of it. So, you know, she got what she needed from it, at least.
Yeah, I mean, they're not starving for anything now.
No.
So
they're
making out pretty good. That crowd though, the first crowd for the first movie.
Yeah.
That was a triathlon for starters, because I was like, I need to catch up on films. So I had an early 50 Shades of Grey. I had Kingsman, the first Kingsman after that, and then The Seventh Son after a forgettable fantasy movie after that. And it was so weird how my enjoyment of the movies correlated to how terrible the movies were. It was weird. With the exception of Kingsman, of course. But that 50 Shades crowd, I happened to just be there with a friend, and God bless them, they were into it, and the crowd overall seemed into it. But it literally was like people brought in sleeping bags.
What?
I don't know. They treated it like it was like, we're gonna be here all night. I guess. Geez. I'm just sitting there like, oh, I am not feeling the vibe in this crowd right now.
Oh my God.
But I found myself laughing out loud at certain points when it should be deathly quiet. And that's where it kind of turns around. Has there ever been a point where you felt like the asshole? Like you were the person kind of taking away from the enjoyment of others? Because I've caught myself at times doing that.
I'm trying to think. You know what? Yes. All right. So most of the horror movies that I go to see, I actually usually see with my mom, because she's the whole reason I even love horror movies. And, you know, so I don't really see her as often anymore, you know, because I live in my own place. So we'll like meet up to go see a good or bad horror movie. And we went to see Annabelle, the prequel of a prequel.
Right. Not the most recent one, but the one before it.
That movie, a lot of people liked that movie. Even people that I respect the opinions of actually enjoyed that movie. And I was like, okay, maybe the previews are wrong. Maybe it's actually good. So we go to see it, and I'm like, all right, I'll do a review on it. And there's just so many not scary moments in it that we just ended up laughing out loud. Well, everyone else is actually kind of freaking out. And I kind of like, am I being a jerk right now for laughing at these scenes that everyone else is clearly freaked out by?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had definitely had that moment of being like, what's that movie? Robert De Niro in the remake of Cape Fear.
Oh yeah.
That's
where you had the cigar.
Like,
you're just like,
yeah, I'm that asshole and laughing inappropriately. So
yeah, I figured we might as well turn the mirror ourselves, because I'll admit we talked a little bit about like teenagers and how they can be just the worst at those certain events. I do recall at times, not purposefully, but just out of sheer ignorance, that I sometimes may have been a disruptive little snot at times.
No,
I remember.
I was the good girl. I was afraid to get in trouble. I was
Well,
also very shy, so I wasn't screaming loudly or anything.
right. Back when I was younger, I had like impulse issues, definitely. So I remember one time a group of us went to go see The Others, and it was like the weekend. We had just gotten out of school. We're juniors in high school, and we're just amped up already. We're watching that Nicole Kidman movie, The Others. And there's a point in that movie that still gets me to this day where I think a cupboard flies open and scary old lady's face is there.
Oh, yeah.
I immediately bolt up, front row, bolt up out of my seat and go, holy fuck! Like, but it wasn't like to purposefully do that. Like, I just couldn't control like my reaction at that point. And
I don't think that's annoying. That more felt like you were so invested in the movie, you just kind of did something instinctively.
I don't know, because halfway through the movie, I'm like, oh no, I know where this is going, and I slowly started to wane in interest because I'm like, I just saw this movie like a year before, done better with Bruce Willis, and I'm like, no, let's not do this. But I felt a little embarrassed at that point because I started looking around, I'm like, oh, everyone thinks I'm such a jerk right now for doing that. Whatever.
I mean, I never did anything like that as a kid. I've been to, I mean, even when I was a teenager, I think that's when I finally started to become hyper aware of how annoying people could be in the movies. It's just become so, I guess I'm even more aware of it now and want to be more vocal about it now, just because of all the articles I've been reading of movie chains blaming, I hate using this word, millennials for the downfall of movie theaters because we're not going to them anymore.
Right.
And their solutions for it were just insane to me. There was at one point AMC wanted to allow cell phone usage.
Yeah, let's talk about these solutions, quote unquote.
Oh my god. And that's, I think, what I first really started to adore and respect Alamo Drafthouse Cinema, because the CEO of the Alamo, he came forth and went, that's a really fucking horrible idea. I'm not going to do that, and neither should they.
Right. That's kind of why, I'm really either catered to just waiting for the movies to be released digital on demand at this point, or, I need to go out of my way to find a good movie-going experience. Like Alamo Drafthouse, I've heard great things about, and I want to have that experience sometime. I just gotta find this time and schedule it right to be able to enjoy it like that. But the solutions they were coming up with, the idea of like, well, we'll have cell phone use free in certain screens. It's like, first of all, that completely undercuts the whole purpose of even going to theater to begin with. Because let's say you have the next Star Wars coming out, you're going to have screenings galore. People want to go see that movie. They're going to go see that movie in droves. And if you were to implement something like a cell phone use only, I guarantee you, for a movie like that, you'd have a lot of pissed off fans giving you negative feedback on that, because it's like, we just want to see the movie because it's going to be this huge event, and this is the only screening we could afford to go to. It's ridiculous. Like, some of it, I don't know. Like, I could see some of them working in theory, like the mommies and daddies screenings, perhaps, for, say, smaller films or the kids' films, because from my perspective, unless it's a Pixar or avant-garde type of animation, I'm really not going to go see it in theater. So I can understand, like, for a Minions movie, setting aside time for moms and dads to take the kids and just kind of chill. Even though a Minions movie isn't what I consider to be chill.
It's funny. Even as a kid, I definitely did love certain staple classic kids films, but it was never what my interest was. I always wanted to watch the grown-up movies with my parents. Right. And, it was funny because my mom was a little more lenient when it came to like adult themes, not anything sexual, but like anything that was a little more adult themed, a little more intelligent for my brain, she was okay with. But she didn't want me watching anything violent. My dad, however, was totally okay with showing me anything violent, but didn't really want me to watch any more adult movies. So like my mom would come home from work and I'm this 5-year-old watching Demolition Man with my dad, and he'd get in trouble but I was totally digging it because I didn't understand. Oh, he just totally scooped that guy's eyeball out and is holding it on a pencil. But as far as kids movies, I have nothing wrong with kids movies. There's just, even when I was, you know what it was? A lot of the TV shows I was watching ruined it for me. I was watching Xena, so I was over the Disney princess thing.
Right.
I was like, why don't they have a sword? So I didn't watch. Honestly, the only Disney movies that I remember really, really loving was Lion King, Mulan, and Beauty and the Beast. And Beauty and the Beast, not so much for like any kind of feminist ideals. It was just a really well-made kids movie.
Oh yeah. Well put together.
But yeah, as far as kids films today, I can't really think of one that I know of that isn't a Pixar movie that I think is good.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last kids movie I saw was, How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
I think that was the last one I saw, and that's a DreamWorks movie. But that was actually, but it had dragons in it, so
all's forgiven. I think, yeah, it really depends on the film too. And I will say one of my more positive experiences with, let's say, well, quote unquote, a kids movie, but a lot of the kids movies that I would find myself going to the theater for are the ones that are kind of trained, on dual level for your kids, but also it's for you, it's for the adult. Like the Lego movie. I remember going to see that in theater. What's that?
I still haven't seen that movie.
Oh, it's actually really good. I mean, it's got the zaniness that you expect from a kid's, but there is like a really cool morality tale going on there, and a cool kind of story with regards to childhood, and there are points, and I will say it was one of those theater going experiences where this has happened in the past couple years, especially with adults. Whenever we go watch movies, is there'd be like a kid and his dad sitting across from me, and I hear the dad start to go, like start to clear his throat, like he's welling up about something that's happening in the movie, and the kid, I hear over my shoulder go, "Dad, are you all right?" He's like, "I'm fine." Like that happened in my screening of Logan.
Oh,
you just had rows of people going.
It's so funny. My boyfriend, he totally cried watching the movie. I didn't cry. I was just depressed. I was so broken by the end of that movie. I'm like, oh my god, this movie.
Daddy clinched it for me. As soon as Daddy came out of her mouth, I'm like, oh no, don't. Don't do that.
No, you know what? No, the scene that got me was Patrick Stewart with his moment in the bed. I was just like, oh no, I don't like where this is going.
Yeah, you know
and then
exactly
it just kept
what's
getting
going to
worse.
happen.
I'm like, I don't like where this is going.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's
like,
gut-wrenching.
But I'd attribute that to being like, one of those positive movie going experiences where it's like, again, everyone's invested in it more so, and you're not so much focused on everyone's reaction because you understand completely why they're reacting the way they are because you're reacting that same way.
Oh yeah, definitely.
One thing I want to ask you about, because this is something I've noticed with the theater going experience, when it comes to say the pre-rolls and the previews and stuff, what's your take on people attending or focusing on, say, the trailers and things like that? You feel that's kind of the leeway, get out your energy there before we get into the main feature? Or do you find yourself perturbed that, like, no, come on, let's focus on Flatliner's preview?
Honestly, no. I'm okay with people being vocal during previews because I love trailers. I think sometimes trailers end up being better than the actual film.
Yeah.
I think there's such an art to making trailers.
Or like you said,
I actually get mad when trailers are boring.
Or like you said, they're total misrepresentations of the actual film.
Oh my god! I think one of the most infamous ones that always has stuck in my head, and this is years ago, was the Moulin Rouge trailer. I don't know if you remember that trailer at all, but it is a completely different movie when you watch that trailer.
Oh,
it looked like a really fun, like adventurous musical movie, and then what you ended up getting was simpering and everyone cries a lot and everyone's depressed. And but wait, sometimes we're gonna have like a really fantastical musical number. It's a hot mess of a film, but the trailer's really good.
I'll have to revisit that trailer, honestly.
I was very upset. I actually like hearing people when they react to the trailers.
Oh yeah.
Especially when you see the Flatliners preview, you start hearing people like go, "What the fuck?" Like, because
Yeah.
that weird song starts playing. That I don't know what that is. Someone like some operatic weird cat calling. It's really bizarre, and everyone always reacts the same. I've seen that trailer now numerous times going to the movie so much, and I always hear the same reaction. People really confused or just finding it hysterical.
I was kind of wondering about that because that is also kind of my leeway period, because I noticed this, especially this past summer when they started releasing the It trailer, was I'll have kind of a moment of silly release when they show that trailer, because it shows Georgie, right, running through the rain, down, following the boat down into the sewer grate, and then all of a sudden smash cut to him smacking his head on that do not cross thing. I burst out laughing every time I see that, whether it's in the theater or just online in that trailer. I know it's horrible. I'm laughing at a kid getting hurt, but
it's
I'm
fine.
just like,
it honestly, it was funny how we were mentioning a lot of horror movies don't have that balance of humor and scares, and I felt like it was finally that movie I needed for this year, because you are kind of supposed to find that funny when you watch it in the movie.
Right.
You're not supposed to be like, oh no, you'll be like, oh damn, what a dumb kid.
But
because he's kind of precious, and he's so adorable and cute. He's Georgie,
yeah, and
so
what's
he's
going to
the
happen.
Embodiment of innocence and obliviousness. So
yeah,
of course he smacks his head on that.
I just can't help but feel that pang of guilt, because someone did kind of turn around their seat and look at me like, well, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. He hit his head. It's hilarious.
Yeah, no,
like, I'm sorry.
I mean, for what I took away from the movie, you're supposed to find it funny. It's kind of like one of those little silly moments. One of the earliest positive screenings I ever been to was I was a teenager, and it was when Sin City came out. I saw it with my mom, and it's one of those movies like I would say a good portion of the audience was very horrified and confused by how gory it was. But then the other half, which was also including me and my mom, we were just laughing at everything, all the ridiculousness, because that's the kind of movie I feel like you're supposed to react like. So it was fun watching the opposite sides of the audience, because it wasn't like the other half was like so mad or anything. They just were like not expecting that kind of movie.
What?
I always felt that was really positive.
Can you recall sort of a very hilarious moment in movie going or movie viewing in which you are taken outside the experience a little bit, but then you're given that opportunity to be like, this is all bullshit? Because I found that with a lot of movies these days, is if something does take me out of it, I'll suddenly just be like, in the grand scheme, does this really matter? This is all fiction. This is so.
Oh gosh. I mean, you have a few moments like that where especially when you see like the big blockbuster Hollywood movies where you might as well just been made in a factory. It's when I see movies that have a lot of heart in it, even when they're bad movies like The Room, those when you see people really want to make a movie, I applaud them for that, regardless of it being good or bad. But when you see a blockbuster movie that's just so manufactured and so fake, yeah, that is when you're kind of like, well, they clearly didn't give a shit, so I'm not going to give a shit either. I would say my most recent one, and it's probably one of my longest reviews yet, I think my second longest one, was my Transformers review.
The Last Night.
Yeah. All right. I refuse to watch most Michael Bay movies nowadays. Right. I used to like his early 90s stuff, but he just he went off the deep end for me long ago. So I watched so you get to like the first 3-5 minutes, and it actually looks really cool. It's all medieval knights, and they're saying this really dramatic dialogue to each other, and they're about to go in a big fight, and they're like, oh, where's Merlin? I'm like, yeah, where's Merlin? I'm actually kind of digging this. It seems like a real movie. And then you see Stanley Tucci in a really bad wig getting drunk. I think he's riding a horse.
Right, yeah.
Burping, being lecherous, and I just kind of sat there and went, you know what? Fuck this. I thought this was going to be a real movie, but never mind. I am now reminded this is indeed a Michael Bay film. So whatever. I'm going to turn my brain off and hope this goes quickly, and which of course it didn't. The movie's almost 3 hours long. And it should have been like an hour and a half shorter.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's been a more recent moment that kind of made me very self-aware of what I'm watching, and kind of how, like, okay, as much as you review don't get so deep rooted into that facet of it. It was the the Power Rangers movie. I went to go see it, and honestly, I thought it was not being a Power Rangers fan from way back at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know what? This is a pretty good like teen drama thing. It's only in the last half hour when they start fighting stuff that I'm like, I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm. No, honestly, yeah, I'm on the same boat with you. I didn't really grow up a huge Power Rangers fan. I actually watched one of the spin-offs. Almost no one has heard of this. It was called The Mystic Knights of Tirnanog, where they're set in Ireland, but I think they filmed in New Zealand because it was cheap.
Okay.
And they're wearing all medieval armor, but it's like really plastic looking. So I was into that show. I didn't really like Power Rangers that much. I did see the first ever movie, with Ivan Ooze and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
I rented all this stuff when I had like a video store that was in my town. And any episodes I ever saw was like from a video store. So yeah, when I saw that movie, I was really surprised. It felt like two scripts kind of got stapled together, where it's like, here's a really compelling drama, the slice of life of these teenagers who are very troubled, kind of like Chronicle, but then like instead of having a more interesting third act that Chronicle did, it just kind of nosedived and didn't know what to do anymore, and
then it became a Power Rangers episode.
Basically it became like a really bad Power Rangers episode. I'm like, I thought you guys were evolving from that. I didn't know you were going back right into it. It was like they were afraid to piss off the diehard fans.
There were two moments in the movie where I definitely was able to step to the side and take myself out of the movie-going experience and just be like, cheap product. One was the much talked about Krispy Kreme stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this is really bad, guys.
Yeah.
Like, the second one was the cameos where they had, I think it was the Green Ranger, Jason David Frank, and the Pink Ranger in like a crowd scene. And I was like, this is so distracting, because I've been to conventions with my buddies at Three Geeks. We've done like panels and stuff, and I've met Jason David Frank up close. I'm just like, have you put on weight, Jason? Like, that's the first thing that came to my mind was, man, you look a little chunkier than when I last saw you. But okay. And then I'm like, what are you doing? You're watching a movie. Quit critiquing that guy you see every year or so at a convention. It's like, But then I remember way back in 2012 when Oliver Stone released Savages.
Yeah. Oh my God, that movie.
I'll say it was my worst movie of that year. I mean, granted, I wasn't seeing as much back then as I am now. But when I went to go see it in theater, 10 minutes into it...
Poor thing, you saw it in theaters.
Yeah, 10 minutes in, I'm like, okay, I'm going to weather through this, but I am done with this movie.
That would have been a really fun balls-to-the-wall movie if it weren't over 2 hours long. That was a long movie.
But what sealed the movie-going experience for me, again, it's all thanks to the people in the back. The last bit where they do the whole... Well, if that had happened, rewind the tape. As soon as that started, I knew that's what was going to happen probably. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, oh no. But thank God, someone a couple rows back from me, I hear someone's seat go up. This guy in the back, clear as day, just yells, "This is some Quentin Tarantino bullshit." And just leaves. And there's a few of us in the theater just chuckling at that. We're like, yeah, he's trying so hard to be Quentin right now. Oh no.
And it just came off like a lame ripoff of Wayne's World.
Yes. Oh my God, I haven't really thought of that way. Huh.
Because they do that, but you're totally supposed to be like, oh, all right, whatever.
Yeah, you're so invested. I'm more invested in Wayne's World at that point than... Oh my God. But it's just those fun moments where, maybe not the most uncouth thing to do, but at the same time, you got to appreciate someone taking you back down to reality a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's been good therapy to kind of discuss and vent, because this has been something that's been roiling around for a while with me. I'm like, I wonder if anyone else is having a really crappy experience in the theaters lately.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And not just because there's crappy movies out, but...
Oh, yeah.
So, once again, I want to reiterate, thank you so much, Kate, for coming on and just shooting the breeze on a variety of movie theater experiences. You're welcome back anytime, of course. where
Oh
can
yeah, of course.
people?
I had a lot of fun.
I'm glad this is a fun experience and not fingernail pulling type of
No, I
torture.
mean,
That
this is my first ever, like, I guess, podcast
yeah.
or, yeah, podcast. Yeah, definitely never been on a podcast before. So I thought I was going to be bad at it, but
No,
it's definitely easy to talk to you. So,
thank goodness for you. You were propelling so much of it actually with all your
oh, yeah.
regaling me with all your stories. So
I'm a talker. I will, especially if you're talking about movies, I will talk your ear off.
well, I would love to have you come back. We'll talk about other stuff maybe at other times. But where can
Yeah.
people find more of you talking about all these experiences?
Oh, you will definitely find me on YouTube. I am under the name That Movie Chick. My latest review is Kingsman: The Gold Circle. I will be seeing Flatliner soon, so definitely look out for that. And I mean, I have Twitter that I try to attempt that I know what I'm doing on it, but I'm also That Movie Chick on there as well.
There's so many social media stuff I can't
Yeah.
even keep up, so it's,
I basically all my social medias is That Movie Chick. Twitter has an underscore before That Movie Chick. So
yeah. So I
that's all you need to
recommend
know.
you subscribe to her channel, check out all those great video reviews, check out Twitter as well. And once again, subscribe, like here as well. Maybe in the comments below, share with us some of your movie-going horror stories, as it were. Thank you so much. You've been listening to McChats here on McGTV, youtube.com/Mike McGTV, on Twitter @Mike McGTV. Thank you so much, Kate.
Yeah, no problem.